Hello there. Excuse me. Well, I know what you're thinking. Where's Victor? Well, he's still here. He's not gone anywhere. But Brian wants to take over for a wee while. Tell you a story. Have a wee listen. So, yes, I'd like to tell you how I got into playing guitar. Well, I was big into all sorts of guitar players and rock music throughout my youth. But one major point that changed my life completely was I bought this album by Joe Satriani. I bought it the week before my birthday, before I was 22. And what a fantastic album this was. And the very next week, I went and bought a guitar. I went to Chapels in Milton Keynes, bought myself an Encore for 100 quid, and it came with a fly spec little amplifier thing that you put headphones into. And I was useless. I think I expected to be able to play like Joe Satriani within a couple of weeks. Anyway, I gave it up, in fairness. I gave it away. I gave it to a friend of mine. But in the meantime, in that interim period, whilst I was trying to learn, I signed up to Guitarist magazine. And anyway, I gave the guitar away. It went down to London somewhere to a friend of mine's. And I came home from work one day, and through the letterbox came a Guitarist magazine, which I'd signed up for a subscription. And this was the very first magazine that landed on my doorstep. It's dated April 1989. God almighty, that's going back. And I saw this laying on the floor as I opened the door and realised I'd made a massive mistake giving away my guitar. I phoned up my mate almost instantly and said to him, look, how are you getting on with it? Do you want, you keeping it, or, you know? And he said, no, I can't do it. So I said, well, I'll have it back, please. I'm going to have another go. And that was it. I pretty much dialed myself into playing guitar, immersed myself in it immensely. I had 2 lessons, official lessons. The guy charged me 25 quid an hour. And now, if you go back bloody 30 years or more, 30 quid an hour was, 25 quid an hour was not cheap. And he was a terrible teacher. There was no, he never gave you any enthusiasm, never praised you for what you'd done. Anyway, I ditched him, and then I went out and bought a book by a guy called Troy Setner, who was a brilliant athlete, as I recall. He was a runner, but he was also a guitar player, and he wrote this book that gave you all the modes and the bits and pieces that are within the making of the guitar and how to use it and whatever. And I tore out the first page of this book because it had all the modes on it, and I set about learning the modes. And also, I bought this. Now, this is the tablature to Surfing with the Alien, because, I mean, let's be fair, that album got me into playing guitar. But I wasn't necessarily worried about learning all the songs. What attracted me to this book was on the very first page, just here, was the explanation behind the tablature. I don't know if you can see that, but it shows you sweep picking and bending up and tremoloing and all sorts of things. This first page absolutely fascinated me. And that was a catalyst for what I ended up trying to learn to play. I did have a go at a few things in here. There's a couple of bits and pieces that I learned, but no, it's not something I was overly fussed about. Like I say, it was that main that main first page. And I'd get up at 6 o'clock every morning. I'd play guitar for a couple of hours, go to work, come home, and then I'd play again from 5 until 10 o'clock at night, and I did that every day during the week. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I'd be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd play till lunchtime, have a bite to eat, and then I'd play again till 10 o'clock at night. Pretty obsessive. I was absolutely immersed in it. I lost a girlfriend through it. I didn't lose her, actually. I packed her in. It's a bit rough when I think about it. But, yeah, her name was Sarah. She was a lovely girl, but just not for me, because guitar was for me at the time. And I said to her, look, I'm going to have to finish with you. And she was a little bit cut up by it. And she said, have you got someone else? I'm like, look, I haven't. I just can't divide my time, between you and the guitar. So, yeah, we parted ways. Anyway, within 10 months of this pretty intensive getting on with it, I was on stage. In the interim period of that, I bought myself an RG 550, Ibanez RG 550, which was a good guitar, but I couldn't get on with it. I couldn't get on with it. There's a part on the guitar that, on the shape of it, that used to dig in my chest, and it got on my nerves. Anyway, I was, through my subscription to Guitarist magazine, I saw this advertised. It's an Ibanez RG 540 Sabre, and I fell in love with it straight away. And anyway, I bought one of those, and I've still got it. It's here in a case. I will drag it out one day. I'm sure it's been posted anyway, the picture of it. It's a very rare guitar because it's only got 2 pickups in it. They only made it in '87 for 6 months at the in Japan, so it's quite a rare beast. I love it. It's got such tone to it. It's a brilliant guitar, more so than this one, which is almost identical to the one you just saw in that picture, albeit the knobs are different. Don't know why that is, and the jack socket's slightly different. But anyway, that's another story. I drove all the way. I didn't drive, actually. I got on a coach and went all the way to Scotland from Milton Keynes. Took me 7 hours, and I did a straight swap in a bus stop in Edinburgh with a guy who, I had a pink PRS, which I couldn't get on with. It just didn't suit me, and I wanted another one of these as a spare guitar. So I got in touch with this guy again through Guitarist magazine, and he had one for sale. I can't remember how much he put it up for, but I rung the guy and said to him, look, I've got a pink PRS. It's like 1,300 quid worth of guitar. I'll do you a straight swap. To which he bit my hand off because it was a much better guitar. And so I went all the way up on a bus, did this deal, swapped the guitars with him. He paid for me bus fare, which was quite nice of him, good lad. I got back on the bus that was sat waiting in a terminal, and came all the way back home. I got home about 2 o'clock in the morning, and proceeded to strip it down and set it up the way it needed to be set up, and that's been with me ever since as well. So yeah, that's what got me into guitar. I hope that's been sort of informative, but I'd like to just point out a couple of things as well. Prior to that, I was into all sorts of guitar players like Vinnie Moore and this guy, David T. Chastain. I don't know if you've ever seen this album. I mean, the guy was amazing. And also Jason Becker, people like that. I was really, Malmsteen, really into him. But I have to say, it was Satriani that tipped the scales. And yeah, I wouldn't be the guy I am today without him. I've seen him a couple of times. Very emotional gigs for me, because he was a catalyst to some of the things that I've achieved since. So thank you, Joe Satriani, for a wonderful inspiration, and thank you for listening. Hope it's been informative. I'd just like to say, actually, before I go, Victor will be back. Oh yes, and he'll give you some more stories about his wee wife. Oh yes, don't you know?